Hello everyone, a very good morning to you from Portugal. We're live at the Circuito Estoril for the next round of Ferrari Challenge, and Copa Shell Am qualifying is about to get underway. 20 minutes, which will see our Copa Shell Am drivers out there on track trying to garner the best grid position that they possibly can ahead of the race to come a little bit later today. We're delighted that you're with us. The sun's shining, a bit of cloud around as you can see. Hopefully that will dissipate with the wind, and this particularly tricky Estoril circuit, which is about 25 kilometers or so from central Lisbon, I am led to believe. Not that I've seen that fine city yet. We're hoping to make amends for that later on today. 4.182 kilometers. There are 13 turns, 4 of them left-handers, 9 of them are right-handers. And you can see there's some undulation here as well at the Estoril circuit. And talking of undulation, Nico Spalek is alongside me. I don't know why I associate you with undulation, but at the moment we have an air temperature of 19 degrees, which for my money is absolutely perfect. And we come here having literally jetted in from central Germany, where it was ridiculously hot last weekend. We're expecting it to be nice and warm here in Portugal this weekend as well.
Indeed, and undulation leads to indignation on my part. Oh. Well, it actually doesn't, but yeah, welcome here to Estoril, to Portugal. Bom dia, as we get ready for our first qualifying session of 6 across the weekend. 3 today, 3 tomorrow, and the reason for that is that we split Copa Shell and Copa Shell Am into 2 separate sessions, which also means that each of those drivers will only have 20 minutes each for their qualifying sessions, as we get preparations here in the pit of Formula Racing.
A nice conversation going on between John Dillon and Henrik Kamstrup there, the two of Formula Racing's drivers, as you say. And look, we could almost wave from our commentary position and you would be able to see us, but there is the start-finish straight, which runs downhill, as you can see. That camera angle perhaps not giving it quite the intensity of drop that there is. And there is Motohiko Isasaki, who is in final stages of preparation. He, of course, has had a win this year. And the Copa Shell Am driver will be hoping to qualify really, really well come today. Also, pleased to welcome, Nico, Stephen Earle back in the European Series for this round as Axel Sardingen goes through his normal morning warm-up routine. As you can see, the tennis ball attached to elastic around his forehead, and Daniel Di Amato there, his driver coach to the left-hand side, saying, "You're not doing it right. You need to be doing it better than that." There is the Pino Frascaro car, the car number 140, and Pino Frascaro, his best finish so far this season has been a P5 at the beginning of the year. In fact, the first race of the first round, which was in Valencia in Spain, he's not been able to match that again. And Paolo Scudieri, there is Paolo Scudieri, who has been a race winner in that same race, actually, in Valencia in Spain, the first round of the weekend. He was victorious within class for Copa Shell Am. So Paolo putting his gloves and helmet on and a hands device, and he will be in the car ready to go out and contest, as Nico has suggested, this short, sharp qualifying, just 20 minutes long, with which the drivers have those 20 minutes to set the best time. There is, forgive me, Tommy Lindroth, who makes his way somewhat unorthodoxly into the car. And Tommy, I have to say, Nico, is being coached now by Fabienne Volvend, and is seemingly the relationship between Fabienne and Tommy is working, because he's seen really, really good results. There too is Kirk Beervold, who is also a driver who is seeing excellent results for Kessel Racing. And as I mentioned just a few moments ago, another North American racer, as indeed is Kirk Beervold, is Stephen Earle, who joins us this weekend as well. If memory serves me, Stephen is a surgeon and a very, very quick racer who's done not only the Ferrari Challenge, but many other GT racing. And there is Fabienne Volvend, who is Tommy Lindroth's driver coach. I think it's fair to say that Fabienne, who's got her running shorts on, and doubtless her and Tommy have been for a little jog around the circuit ahead of getting qualifying underway. I think under Fabienne's tutelage, Tommy has really come good, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And we had the opportunity to have a brief chat with them over breakfast. And I asked Tommy, if it was his first time here, and he said he has been here, but he hasn't raced here, and he enjoys the track, he likes it. He feels like turns 2 and 3 are very difficult for him. The sharp right-hander that is turn 3. And but in general, he likes it, and you can see there is a good sense of anticipation and fun in the paddock.
And we saw Stephen Earle putting his crash helmet on, Nico. Stephen Earle, delighted to welcome him back into the European Ferrari Challenge. And there we can see the car of Mutlu Tazev, if memory serves me, making its way around the track. And that's a really nice shot inside the car where you can see, you know, the cockpit, as it were. It's a remarkable, these 488 Challenge Evos, and that's the Kirk Beervold car. The headphone socket going in, which enables the engineer to have conversations with Kirk Beervold, which is, you know, that infrastructure between Kirk and the team, really, really important. You drive a coach, and you as a driver, because able to advise exactly what's going on around the track as well. So your engineer or your driver coach almost acts as something of a spotter, really, Nico.
Yeah, very well described. I mean, in fairness, in this qualifying session with Copper Shell M is only, and I say only in quotation marks, because we're only having half the Copper Shell field effectively. There's only 10 cars, but it is an old-style track. It is a very narrow track, and that means traffic on this flowing circuit is almost inevitably going to hinder you in your progress if that traffic is slower than you. And therefore, that spotter role that your team can give to you and identify when to ease up and prepare yourselves for the next flying lap is absolutely essential.
Very interesting what you were saying there about the makeup of this circuit. When I was talking to Alexander Nussbaumer earlier on, one of our drivers, and he was saying that, yeah, this is very much an old school circuit where in reality, Dave, track limits should not be an issue, because if you exceed the track limits, basically your bottom is going to get bit because you're into gravel. As we can see, you know, the track has got plenty of these old school gravel traps around them, unlike some of the, dare I say it, somewhat clinical circuits of now, which have got acres and acres of tarmac runoff area, Nico, which almost encourages and leads the drivers into exceeding the tarmac insofar as they can, and to try and get the slingshot that they desperately desire. So we'll watch Stefano Marazzi here getting past the car of Paolo Scudieri. No meaningful times on the board yet, because we've only had 3 minutes of the track running, so expect to see some times coming down, but they will come a little bit later in the session. I think that's fair to say that you know, this track shouldn't give us particular problems when it comes to track limits. We're on board with Henrik Kamstrup now. He, of course, one of the Copper Shell AM drivers, and a great onboard shot from Henrik Kamstrup. As you can see, there is some undulation on this track, and going past there is the car of Stefano Marazzi, I believe. So, as I mentioned to you, it's 4.182 kilometers, 13 turns, 4 of them left and 9 of them are right-handers. And this sequence here in particular, where you start to climb and then go downhill once again, as Henrik Kamstrup is beginning to build the power. And through turn 12, before the parabolica here, which is turn number 13, where you can carry a lot of speed here. The car is naturally pulled almost to the outside of the circuit, and now Henrik Kamstrup is going to go for a lap. Let's try and stay on board with Henrik Kamstrup and complete an entire lap of the Estoril circuit, as we're heading down now past the start-finish line, breaking the timing beam, heading to turn number 1, the right-hander. Henrik sets himself up for that, brakes late, just kisses the apex there, and from turn number 1 you run downhill, heading towards turn number 2 on this Estoril circuit. Another right-hander which has taken up plenty of pace, then a bit of a blast of throttle before turn number 3, which really winds itself around and becomes more intense than you think. Then again uphill before we're into turn number 4 now, which is as close as you get to a hairpin, really, and then absolutely full chat flat now. There is a turn which is a kink, and here it is, it's turn 5. Cross the curbs, absolutely take it full chat flat before you head up towards the interior parabolica, which is turn number 6, left-hander. It's almost banked a little bit, and you can carry a lot of speed through there, and you can see Henrik Kamstrup doing a good job here. Heading up towards the turn number 7 now, which is a right-hander. You've run downhill a little bit and onto the curbs, and onto the grass a little bit for Henrik Kamstrup as well, before now heading up towards turn number 8. Again, plenty of curb taken, but well within the track limits. And then very quickly, it's turn 9 and 10 sequence, this chicane here, before we get to the S's, which is turns 11 and 12 on board with Henrik Kamstrup, the Formula Racing driver, through turn number 12 now. And you build speed to take it around this Parabolica et Center, which is turn number 13, the final turn on the track, before you can see evolving in front of you the start-finish line. Very, very long start-finish straight. And here comes Henrik Kamstrup to cross the timing line in about a second's time, and he goes second fastest overall with a 1:44.466. Now, the best driver, and thank you so much for our team for allowing us to stay on board with Henrik Kamstrup for the entire lap. It gave us the opportunity to describe the lap to you. Stefano Marazzi is the quickest at the moment. Make that now Mutlu Tazev, the Emil Frey driver, who's delivered a 1:43.612. There are only 2 drivers in the 1:43s. They are Mutlu and Stefano Marazzi that I was mentioning just a few moments ago. Then it's Henrik Kamstrup, Paolo Scudieri, Tommy Lindroth, and Pino Frescaro. Yet to see Stephen Earl, Motohiko Isasaki, Kirk Beervold, and Josef Schumacher to put some times out on the board. Mutlu is improving once again on something of a mission from the Emil Frey driver here. The livery across that 488 Challenge Evo is one of the most distinctive within the paddock of all distinctive liveries, but the Emil Frey Sportivo team having done a good job with the Mutlu Tazev car in terms of colouring and engineering as well, because he is currently the fastest by some just under 4/10 quicker than anybody else at the moment. So it was great to stay on board with Henrik Kamstrup, Nico, who gave us a fantastic on-board lap of this quite challenging Estoril circuit. It's you and I didn't get the opportunity to walk the track last night as we normally do in preparation for our broadcast. You know, this is rehearsed. This is, you know, we spend quite some time on preps. And we didn't do it last night on account of the fact you insisted on us not.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. We're going to try and do it. We're going to try and do it today. It's Josef Schumacher. You can see there.
There is no trying, like for those drivers who will qualify for their race right now. There will be a track walk at the end of the day, and fortunately, very fortunately, the track cameras and all the camera crew will be retired from today at that point, so you don't have to bear with us as we make our way in a little bit more than 1 minute 43.745 seconds, which I'm sure it's going to take us as Mutlu Tazev puts that time on the board. There is Manuel Agostna and there is Eric Chung going through the routine, because obviously he's a Shell driver. His session will come up after this one. And as we follow Motohiko Isozaki with this distinct green metallic livery, which he has given us some great entertainment has really, really mixed it up with the European drivers who generally have a lot more track knowledge. Not necessarily on this one, because as we said before with Tommy Lindroth, this track is one where the Ferrari Challenge hasn't been. And therefore, many of the drivers, not to my knowledge, certainly not in the last 15 years or so, and unless you, as a driver, have gone to other series and other events and have basically used that as a training ground, many of them have very little or no track knowledge. However, I do understand that some drivers actually did the trick and went here on some other set of wheels just a few weeks ago.
Yes, you're right. They did. And we will name those drivers in due course. But for the moment, thank you, Nico, Motohiko Isasaki has just bested Kirk Beervold. We're getting times in the 141s now, and Motohiko Isasaki is the first of the drivers to put it into the 141s. You can see from the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen the order as we've got it at the moment. It is Motohiko Isasaki from Kirk Beervold, from Paolo Scudieri, from Henrik Kamstrup, Mutlu Tazev, Tommy Lindroth, Stefano Marazzi, Pino Frescaro, and Stephen Earl. But it's changing every single lap, as you would expect, because the track will rubber in a bit. The temperature will rise by, you know, portions of degrees, and the fastest times, theoretically, depending on tyre life, tyre longevity, should come towards the end of the session. As Tommy Lindroth trying to advance his P7 at the moment. He's currently delivered a time of 1:43.751. Still only got one driver in the 1:41s, and that remains Motohiko Isozaki. So Tommy Lindroth stays where he is then, but I really rather think that was an installation lap for this lap, as Motohiko Isozaki is absolutely throwing everything at this, Nico. Having to use some opposite lock to control the car off of that turn. You can see through Sector 1 and Sector 2, he's gone quicker than even his best time, and is heading to break the timing beat now. This is going to be a new time. Indeed, he takes a couple of tenths out of his previous best time. We could see a time into the 140, Nico, because we're now at 141.050. So just 500ths off of being into the 140s. Interestingly, Kurt Beerbold had a good lap last lap, but that's been deleted for track limits, so he's got to go again. Paolo Scudieri then, another good showing from Paolo, who's fourth fastest at the moment. So we are seeing those improvements, and Henrik Kamstrup and Paolo Scudieri both improving, and you can see the two cars together there. The blue car is Henrik Kamstrup, and the red car there, the 101 car, is that of Paolo Scudieri. They are P3 and P4 at the moment, but still only one driver in the 141s, and that is the Motohiko Isozaki car. And Kirk Beervold and Josef Schumacher, good showing from Josef Schumacher, who has just gone third fastest. Motohiko Isozaki is finding the hurry-up pills from somewhere, Nico, during this qualifying session. But see, he's gone quicker still through Sector 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And generally, it's at this moment that we would give you a reference time from the last time we were here, which unfortunately we can't. So these are the first quali times that we have on the Estoril circuit for the Ferrari Challenge. So it's a 1:41.0, and by the looks of the first sector and the second sector, that 1:41 barrier may yet fall within the next minute or so.
Well, he's cumulatively, he's 4 tenths up on his previous time. Is this going to be a 1:40 from Motohiko Isozaki? It's a 1:46.21, but at the same time, Nico, Kirk Beervold delivered a 1:40.767. Now, interestingly, you can see that Motohiko Isozaki is right behind Kirk Beervold. So they're jostling for that P1 position, for pole position within class, of course, between the two of them. So a great showing from Motohiko Isozaki and Kirk Beervold, who, of course, are also vying, if I dare say, in the Drivers' Championship as well. Josef Schumacher, who is third fastest for Eberlein Automotive, very good showing. Kirk Beervold and Martinus Richter then P1 and P2, as I mentioned in the Copa-Shell AM Drivers' Championship, and it's oh so close because Kirk Beervold on 69 points, Motohiko Isozaki on 50 points, beg your pardon. Martinus Richter, of course, is P2 in the Drivers' Championship now. The Nuremberg foot surgeon, who had a fantastic time of it, sadly is not racing here this weekend, so won't be adding to his points haul. But Kirk Beervold and Motohiko Isozaki, then the competition is lit up even in qualifying. And of course, with Josef Schumacher with a very good showing in P3 as well. And Stefano Marazzi right now, who at the early stages of this qualifying session, Nico, was right at the top of the chart, now finds himself at the moment in P7 within class. So he's done a personal best through Sector 1. Could this be an improvement from Stefano Marazzi? We will see. Time will tell. But there's only 5.5 of it left in this session for our Shell AM drivers.
Indeed, and the time that will tell will be on your screen, pretty much at the center bottom, and it will show where the clock will stop at the end of this lap. It's a 1:40.621. That sounds like maybe too much of a stretch, but will there be an improvement? It doesn't really look like it. A 1:40.724. That's 3.1 seconds off the pace. That is quite a little bit, and 5 minutes now exactly. Those sessions lasting only 20 minutes, they go by in a hurry, which means obviously you've got less traffic, but obviously you also have much less in terms of time in the session to maneuver compared to the normal 30-minute allotment that you get in a regular session. There is Paolo Scudieri in that dark red, dark blue livery. Looks quite aggressive, looks fast. Will it be fast?
The upside, though, of the reduction in terms of time and everyone qualifying within their class is that the traffic that you mentioned is much, much less than if we'd got the Shell drivers and the Shell Am drivers out there together. So they ought to be able to find track space. And Kirk Beervold, who is currently second fastest, bested by Motohiko Isozaki by 1.5 tenths, is going for it here with a quicker than anyone through Sector 1, a personal best through Sector 2. Now, you don't need to colour every single sector block purple for it to be a better time. So let's see what Kirk Beervold can do. Beginning to wind the car up nicely now and head towards that timing line. Kirk Beervold looking fairly neat and tidy here. Is this going to be a sub 146.21 from Kirk Beervold? As he crosses the timing line, it's 9/100ths away from where he needed to be, Nico. So he's getting closer to it. But Motohiko Isozaki, having done a very good job with that 140.621, is still out there on track. In fact, the only car in the pit lane at the moment is the Josef Schumacher car from Eberlein Automotive. So all cars out there on track as Kirk Beervold goes for it again. Henrik Kamstrup has been looking good as well. It's currently fourth fastest as he breaks the timing beam. He stays fourth fastest, and Paolo Scudieri right behind him stays third fastest. Here we can take a look at Henrik Kamstrup. And loving this split screen, because what this gives us is how the driver is hard at work inside the car and what all these inputs inside the car are actually delivering to the car that we can see in the bigger part of this split screen imagery. So Henrik Kamstrup, who is currently fourth fastest for Formula Racing, doing a very good job. Had a nice conversation with Henrik yesterday, and he is certainly performing well at the moment. It would be a within-class second row start for him. That looks even more menacing when we look at that shot now. The forecast for the weekend is absolutely dry and lovely, so I don't think there's going to be any problems. But you can see carrying a lot of speed there and ran just off the track, did Henrik Kamstrup. Sector 1 was not brilliant. The cumulative target time is 1:08.952. We're going to be a ways away from that. Sure enough, and now he's got traffic in Mutlu Tarzev ahead of him. His lap is gone to Begora, I'm tempted to say. There's another word we can use, but Mutlu Tarzev doing the level best to get out of the way, but inevitably, Nico, when you've got traffic ahead of you, your concentration is not as honed as you need it to be. You're not in the zone anymore because you're concentrating and thinking about where that car ahead of you is going to be positioning itself. So his lap is compromised. Henrik will go again. This is not going to improve his big time. Sure enough, it doesn't. He's nearly 5 seconds down on where he needs to be. So he has to go again and therefore has to take another lap out of his tyres. And here we can see in the all-yellow car is Josef Schumacher, who is currently fifth fastest, being chased down by Kirk Beervold. Here comes Kirk Beervold then in the 124 car. Now, Kirk Beervold, who is enjoying a rich vein of form in the Ferrari Challenge Copa Shell Am and leading that classification going into this weekend. He's had a win, he's had a second place, he's had 2 P3s as well. And it's really consistency, consistent point scoring from Kirk Beervold that sees him right at the top of the chart. And he's had to bail this lap, as you can see. Absolutely not going around at quali pace. And I just wonder, Nico, with only 30 seconds remaining, Motohiko Isozaki was the only driver that was really putting in sector times, which would cause us some excitement. But as you can see, Motohiko Isozaki has decided enough is enough with 15 seconds remaining on the board. He has a secured pole position. No one's going to take that away from him. It's pole position within class, of course, for the Copa Shell Am drivers. And the ding-dong battle between Motohiko Isozaki and Kirk Beervold has been very, very exciting. yes, there was an unfortunate coming together at Spielberg, but they have healthy respect for each other, and the competition between them has been really, really good in Copenhagen.
Yeah, absolutely. As we take a few lovely shots to music, we keep our eyes on the timing screen to make sure that we bring you any update if there is one. And this is the only driver who could theoretically do something with personal best first sector. But I think the second sector, as you can see, the seconds tick away. That is not going to be an improvement in terms of position. So I think Tommy Lindroth will stay in his P6 position. Stefano Marazzi improved to P7 just a few seconds ago, but didn't trouble the Tommy Lindroth time. And Tommy Lindroth, I don't think, will be able to leapfrog Josef Schumacher, who is 1.6 seconds off the pace, Tommy 2.0, and that means a 1:42.315 would be needed for an improvement, and it doesn't quite make that mark.
Close, wasn't it?
It was close, but things are as they were. Tommy Lindroth, the last one across the line. Everybody is home, safe and dry after this qualifying session. That means they will line up in class. Obviously, they will line up behind the Shell drivers, who will be at the front of the grid for the joint race.
Yes.
Behind Moto Ikozaki and this man, Kirk Berwald.
May I say, there are one or two little surprises in there, Nico. There's Motohiko Isosaki, who was the quickest, with that 1:46.21. Well done, Motohiko. Carlos there, his engineer, wanting to be in on the action. That's fair enough. Yeah, one or two little surprises. Very, very good pace from Paolo Scudieri. Very good pace from Josef Schumacher. And there is Kirk Beervold, just talking about... I mean, at the end, how close was it? 9/100, splitting P1 and P2 as Eric Chung gets prepared, ready to go out for Copa Shell qualifying, which is the next that we will see. So there, Kirk Beervold, resident in Singapore, and here in Europe to contest this Copa Shell championship within the Ferrari Challenge. And Motohiko Isosaki just looking at every other driver's times, as well as these drivers do. Your first port of call as soon as you get back into the garage is take a look at the times out there and who has done what. And Motohiko, you did a very good job, sir, because you put it P1, so within class you will be starting from pole position. So here's confirmation of the result then. Motohiko Isosaki from Kirk Beervold. Paolo Scudieri, Henrik Kamstrup. Then Josef Schumacher, Tommy Lindroth, Stefano Marazzi, Mutlu Tazev, Stephen Earle, and Pino Frascaro. Rounding out the top 10 from our qualifying from Copa Shell Am. Copa Shell qualifying to come next. Here, we're live from Estoril. Delighted that you are with us at Ferrari Races. As always, it is a thrill for us to be able to bring you the best of the Ferrari Challenge racing from around the world. And the European Series here in Estoril, as Corinna Gostner and Manuela Gostner side by side there, helping each other with race suits and making sure all the hair is contained within the fireproof balaclava. That's never something that I would have to worry about, that's for sure. Not enough hair to be concerned with. There is Thomas Gostner, father to Corinna and Manuela, and also father to David, who is here as well. Some spectators here, and Paolo Scudieri then. He'll be very happy with that P3. Thank you, and well done, Paolo. Menacing, that helmet design. Circuito Estoril then, which is where we are, and both Nico and I have racked our brains to ascertain whether the Ferrari Challenge has been here in the past, and we don't think so. Certainly not in our tenure with the Ferrari Challenge, which we are privileged to have been associated with for so long. And there you can see, next qualifying session is coming up from Copa Shell at 9:30 local time here, where it's 9:24. So the top driver then, Motohiko Isosaki, with a 1:40.621. Has put it on pole position for our Copa Shell Am drivers. And he did it in fine style. Great competition between himself and Kirk Beervold, and there he is getting out of the car. Very satisfied with his qualifying performance. Well done to all the drivers. We'll be back with you for Copa Shell qualifying in around about 5 minutes' time.
And here we are back in the pit lane, and we're about 1 minute to go before the lights at the exit of pit lane will turn green again. And for one of the drivers for whom this will be the case is this one. This is Axel starting, and just before we saw Von Skeltma with the 177 Shark's Teeth fronted 488 Challenge Evo. This is Axel starting from Hertha Racing. Doors still open, getting some air into the car. It's not too hot, but obviously you like a little bit of a fresh breeze, especially if you are in your race suit, helmet on, ready to go. Every little bit of cooling will be welcome. As we look into the car of Eric Chung, the 198 machine. Eric Chung, one of the longest campaigner in the Ferrari Challenge. COVID played a part in him not being as regular on European racetracks, or not at all, for quite a few seasons, which was very sad and huge omission, but even more welcome to him to be back. And there is Manuel Agostner, already race winner this season, and belying her young age, seasoned campaigner in the Ferrari Challenge. She's been here, it feels like, more years than she's old or young. There is Thomas Gostner in the forefront, another member of the Gostner clan, and actually the pater familias, the father of Corinna Gostner, who's going through shot there as well. The 136 car, that's Alexander Nussbaumer. By all accounts, not a member of the Gostner family, and that's a rare one.
You're digging yourself a big hole here, Nico.
Well,
first you were complimentary to Manuela, then you were making her very, very old when she isn't, and goodness me, it was just really interesting to listen to you try and dig yourself out of that, and then you're questioning Alexander Nussbaumer and whether he belongs to the Gostner family as well, which of course he doesn't.
No, probably not.
Bless you. Bless you. Forgive me for not being on the air. I was talking to one of our Trofeo Pirelli drivers, Lucky Kira, who was just outside our commentary studio and was actually banging on the door in the hope that we would allow him on the air, Nico. And I said no. That's a bit mean of me. That's the sort of bloke I am. Looking at the car of Christian Herdwieper there, the blue and red 183 car that you can see just behind Thomas Gostner as we get our Shell drivers out there for qualifying. 11 of those drivers, and there are some spectators enjoying the qualifying action here. Nico alluded to the fact earlier on that it goes very, very quickly, and there is the von Skeltermar car, the familiar livery of the 177 car from Kessel Racing, which for as long as I've been associated with the Ferrari Challenge, which is probably more years than most of the Ferrari management would care to remember, he's had shark's teeth. Not only adorning the car, but adorning his overalls, his crash helmet, his luggage, almost everything. It's become something of Fonz's trademark. Talking of trademarks, trademark star is Axel Sartingen in the 178 car. Now, Axel Sartingen just beaten in the championship last year by Franz Engstler, is certainly making his presence felt in the championship this year and is leading the Copa Shell Championship on 97 points. And his nearest challenger, if you will, in the Shell class is Manuela Gostner, who's currently P2, and von Skeltermar, who is P3. Then it's Willem van der Worm in the championship, who I don't think Willem is here this weekend, which I'm sure he and his lovely wife will be watching, whatever their plans are this weekend racing. So hello to the van der Worm family. We miss you. So 17 minutes remaining, and there you can see Axel Sartingen has just been passed by the red, white, and green car, which is center screen right now of the Great Paul Nottingham driver, John Dillon, who is so, in my opinion, Nico, and I wax lyrical about John Dillon, but he's someone that we've talked about in Ferrari Challenge for a few years now, and John is such an improved driver. So his first podium and his first race win cannot be far away. He's also been doing racing in the UK series as well, so he's getting a lot of tracks up. So best of luck for the weekend to John Dillon, and we wish well to Eric Chong as well, who we ride on board with right now. And Eric is a seasoned campaigner in the Ferrari Challenge and has raced not only in Europe but also in what was the Asia Pacific series, which is now the Japanese series. Pretty sure it's been reaching out. It's in the North American series as well, which of course takes to the track next weekend in Napa Valley in California at Sonoma. There on Thursday, I think. Subject to terms being agreed, naturally. Following this weekend's performance, they may get altered, Nico, who knows. But yes, we're right on board with Eric Chong. That's a great onboard shot as John Dillon goes quickest of anyone and sets us our first sort of benchmark time of a 1:41.793. But expect those times to come down. Now, the Shell drivers have the benefit, if you like, of the Shell Am drivers having been out for their qualifying session earlier, which means a bit of the Pirelli rubber has gone down in the track. I have to say, when I was talking to Lucky Kira, one of our Trofeo Pirelli drivers, just a few moments ago, it was drizzling just a little bit outside of where our studio location is, which is right next door to race control. Just a little bit of drizzle in the air. now. I don't think that will make any difference whatsoever to the track surface, but just thought I'd mention it as some form of meteorological report.
Well, even if it doesn't make a huge difference, it can be that little bit of a difference in terms of how the tires exactly perform through certain turns. Obviously, it can make certain runoff areas, the curbs, a little bit slippery, and therefore change the behavior of the cars ever so slightly, because obviously the drivers are moving their cars at the limits of adhesion anyway. So even a slight change in where that limit is exactly will make a difference inevitably.
So what you're saying is my observation was worthy.
As is always the case.
Colour ladders are rare. Corinna Gosner goes by the von Skeltermark car. Von's making sure that as Corinna was on a hot lap, he got out of the way. As Axel Sartingen goes quickest with a 1:40.539. So the fastest time comes from the German resident Axel Sartingen, a 1:40.539. He set that early on in the session. Is that part of a ploy, part of a plan from the Hertha Racing organisation to bank a quick lap early on, then come in and rest the car and preserve tyre longevity potentially? Still out there at the moment for Lueg Sportivo and Hertha Racing is Axel Sartingen. We saw him going through his exercise and concentration warm-ups earlier on, just before getting into that 178 car. So it is Axel Sartingen from John Dillon. Then it's Thomas Gosner, Christian Herd-Wieper, Peter Christensen, Eric Chung and Corinna Gosner. The 7 drivers of the 11 that have posted times thus far. We are expecting to see times from Alexander Nussbaumer, Thomas Loflad, Corinna Gosner, von Skeltwell and Manuela Gosner before the session is over. Now, as you can see, even though Sector 1 and Sector 2 are coloured grey from Axel Sartingen, he is but 2 1,000ths down on his previous best time. So if he improves by any more than 3 1,000ths in this final sector, it could still be an improvement from him. So let's see if he can do that. It's a 1:40.539 is the target. And as he heads to break the timing beam, Axel Sartingen heads towards the line. And it's a 1:40.228. So actually another one of my predictions, Nico, and observations, actually proving correct, because in the final sector he found some time. He found very nearly 3/10, so did improve. So it's now a 1:40.228. With 12 minutes remaining, may I pose an interesting question to you? The fastest time being set by Mr. A. Sartingen at 1:40.228. Is it potential? Is it possible? The evolution of the track. We could see a time into the 1:49s. 2/10 from our top drivers in Shell, do you think?
It is possible. I mean, just to give you a benchmark in terms of where we've been already this week, because obviously we already had a test, we already had a free practice. We haven't seen a 1:39 time in Coppershell. We have seen a 1:38.9 in Trofeo Pirelli by Eliseo Dono, but the best that we have seen thus far is a 1:40.1 by Motohiko Isozaki, which is an M driver in the test. Free practice, Manuela Gosner 1:49.42. So remember, there was a little bit of drizzle yesterday as well, which was during the test of Coppershell. So weather certainly played a part. So it's not equal terms in terms of when those times have been set compared to the track conditions that we have currently, which is a very winded way of saying, yes, I think it's possible.
Okay.
But it's not a guarantee based on the times we have seen over the last few days.
Thank you. Christian Herd-Wieper, quickest of anyone through Sector 1, personal best through Sector 2. This is going to be a very, very good lap from Christian Herd-Wieper as he heads towards the line now. It's going to be in the 40s, only just a 1:49.96. So he needs to improve by some 7/10ths or 7.5 to be troubling Axel Sartingen and Thomas Gosner. But he is third fastest at the moment. And there you can see John Dillon's engineering team. John is currently fastest, and there you can see one of the air bottles. Peter Christensen is going quicker through Sector 1 of anyone. So this could be a very good time on its way from Peter Christensen then. And we await the Sector 2 time, which is the cumulative of the laps so far. And Peter Christensen then as Motohiko Isasaki, who was the quickest driver in Shell-Am, is watching on. So Peter does a personal best through Sector 2, but is some 9/10 down on that time overall from Axel Sartigan. So we will see if he can find a huge chunk of time in the final sector, but it's going to be an improvement from Peter Christensen from his current P6 position, unless something goes right around this parabolic turn, the final turn on this Estoril circuit. Target time 1:42.28. I don't think it's going to be quite there. In fairness, he did lose some time in that final sector, Nico, because he's not improved. He's stayed P6, beaten by Eric Chung and John Dillon, who has just crossed the timing line incidentally. So it's Sartigan from Ghostner from Herdviper. And we've got just under 9 minutes of this session remaining. Peter Christensen is going again. And there you can see as observations are being made inside the garages, data being analysed all the time, and the timing screens being looked at by none other than Josef Schumacher, who was a very quick driver in the Shell-Am qualifying just a few moments ago. And the best of those drivers was this man, Motohiko Isasaki. So Axel Sartigan brings the car in then and parks it. At the moment, no one is getting within 5.5 tenths of Axel Sartigan, but one young lady, the focus and emphasis on young, is Manuela Ghostner. And personal best through Sector 1. Where is Manuela at the moment? Way, way down the order. So we expect more to come from Manuela Ghostner, who has been a long-time campaigner in the Ferrari Challenge. And not only that, she's done other racing series very successfully as well. She's a fine, fine racer. Coached by Giorgio Sonagiotto, who passes on his advice, and Manuela takes it all on board. Really nails this 4LA Challenge Evo uphill. And Manuela is certainly one of those drivers that I would have suggested he's one that could potentially take it to Axel Sartigan. Christian Herdviper has improved once again, and again has gone quickest through Sector 1, personal best through Sector 2. He is currently third fastest with a 1:40.996. The target time is the 1:42.28, which has been set by Axel Sartigan. And here comes Christian Herdviper now, and breaks the beam at a 1:48.97. So it was an improvement, Nico, but not enough to move him from P3. So he remains bested by both Thomas Ghostner and Axel Sartigan at the moment. And that is Axel Sartigan, who, as I say, team's right there is Frank Herter, who's team principal of First Racing. Frank and Axel have got a really good relationship here. And Daniele Diamato, who is Axel's driver coach, they get on very well, and he does a good job. And Stefano Guy, we can see there, who's also another hugely successful GT driver who came from Ferrari Challenge, Nico.
Of course, one of the strongholds of the Ferrari Challenge when you and I entered the challenge in our respective capacities, and he
62, 63.
74 or 75.
Those are our ages.
Roughly.
Yeah.
And as you say, he is racing, I think, in the Italian GT for the time being, GT Open. I
think you're right.
In some instances, and still doing very, very well in that. And there is Christian Herdviper, ran a little bit wide, it seemed, on the exit of that turn, and now entering this mini corkscrew uphill, if you want.
Yeah, it's almost like the reverse of the Laguna Seca, isn't it? Because you're running uphill, but he is closer now than he has been, Nico. The cumulative time, he'd taken some, he's found some pace, to be fair to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And with 5.5 minutes remaining, it is now crunch time in this qualifying session, and Christian Herdviper is trying to push for a front row start, potentially a pole position. Well, he has improved by 1 place.
And he's gone up to 3. Hang on a minute, Dave, you said he was P3. He was, but just while we were watching that, Alexander Nussbaumer had put it into P3. So Christian Herdviper has gone quicker, but actually all he's done is retain his 3rd place, because he's now usurped Alexander Nussbaumer. Now there is Giorgio Sonagiotto, who I was mentioning is Manuela's driver coach. And it's still Sardigan, Thomas Gössner, Christian Herdvipper, Alexander Nussbaumer, and Manuel Gössner is P5. Here comes Christian Herdvipper again. He's going for another go here. And we are into less than 5 minutes of this session remaining. Christian Herdvipper driving for the Emil Frey Sportivo organization. Now, when it comes to engineering successful racing cars, Nico, Emil Frey, they kind of know what they're doing.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And they are competing in the DTM, for example, which is, in terms of GT racing,
right up there.
Right up there. Didn't have the best of weekends at Norrisring, but have been very strong and have already been on the podium this year. So they're representing the prancing horse very, very respectably in a strong field of competition.
I was talking to Jack Aitken just last weekend about that, and apparently the balance of performance really went against them at Norrisring, where a balance of performance hit can really hurt because it's such a short track, and therefore the Ferrari 296 GT3 that is used by Emil Frey in DTM didn't perform to its potential. Certainly performing to his potential is Fons Skeltermar with personal bests through Sector 1 and Sector 2. Bear in mind, Fons Skeltermar is P3 in the Drivers' Championship at the moment. And he's always one of those racers to be reckoned with. And I can see from our position just alongside race control that Axel Sardigan feels that he's done as much as he can do in this qualifying session and has exited the car, Nico. So he feels that he's 140.228. No one is getting close enough to it to need him to go back out again. I think that's very wise driving from Axel and wise strategy from the team, because what that's done is by him minimizing the laps he has run in qualifying, it means that he is potentially going to have good tire longevity in the race.
Yes, definitely, because that's generally how it works. You have to race on the tires that you qualify on, and that means the fewer laps you have to do to reach what you can achieve, the more longevity you will have in the tires. So no question about that.
Sorry. Another driver that's missing this weekend is Christian Kinch. And the reason I'm laughing as I mention that is he's just sent me a message, which I'm not going to read out because that would cause problems. Christian, we miss you, friend. And look forward to seeing you next time around. And
even though we miss you, good choice, mate. Yeah. Good choice.
Yeah, the offer that was made, you had to accept. David Fuminelli we can see in there for Kessel Racing, Nico. Another hugely successful driver who, of course, has raced in Ferrari Challenge. And there is Trofeo Pirelli star Alessio Dono. Good morning, Alessio. Carlo alongside him there, having just engineered, of course, Motohiko Isozaki to the top spot in Shell Am. It's Axel Sardigan who's top of the table in Shell Drivers with but a minute and a half remaining. There's a real ding-dong going on between Christian Herdvipper and Alexander Nussbaumer over P3. At the moment, but at P1 it's Axel Sardigan. He's out of the car. There he is, speaking to his driver coach, Daniele Diamato. And there you can see the air jack on the Christian Herdvipper car. Presumably Christian feels that he has done as much as he can do, and he's delivered a P3 at the moment, ahead of Alexander Nussbaumer, Fons Skeltermar, John Dillon, Manuel Gössner, Eric Chung, Peter Christensen, Corinna Gössner, Thomas Loflad, and this is Thomas Gössner, who is still making his way around the track, Nico, and fairly early on in this session. He delivered a 140.794, which is enough for second fastest. It's 5/10 down on Axel Sardigan, which means Axel's got real pace here at Estoril, and I think he is one of the drivers that may have got some cheeky laps in last weekend.
Well, he is not far off the pace. He is P2 already, second sector. Decent, not quite there to trouble the time of Axel Sardigan, but certainly looking in terms of an improvement, looking for an improvement in terms of time. And you never know, even with only 22 seconds, what that's going to be worth come the checkered flag and when everybody's in pit lane. And Thomas Loflad, who you just mentioned, who's currently at the very bottom of our timing screen, first sector, better than the current pole time. So.
Wow.
don't dismiss that. Thomas Gostner lost a little bit in the final sector, and obviously that is where tire degradation will play the biggest part, because that's where the turns are very narrow, and if the tires just go off by a little bit, that means traction and grip is you will miss it the most.
Let's watch Thomas Loflad then, who I think, Nico, is probably going to be the final runner, isn't he, in this qualifying session, because the checkered flag is out. As you correctly identified and brought up, Sector 1, very good from Thomas Loflad. The Gome Baron Motorsport driver, personal best through Sector 2. The Sector 2 time is in the 49s, which is kind of where it needs to be. In fact, there's only one driver put it in the 48s, and that's Axel Sardigan through that sector. So this could still be a very, very good time from Thomas Loflad. I think it's fair to say it's probably going to be an improvement on his P11 position.
Well, yeah, I think the second sector, he would like to have some of that back. He lost more than a second in that sector, and that means maybe he didn't quite have that down, and as a result, it is an improvement. P10, maybe not quite where he would have liked it to be. It is an improvement still. Thomas Gostner is heading into pit lane, I think it's fair to say, with 7 seconds to the bad of the provisional pole time. And I think also that means that we have our starting lineup for the race to come later on confirmed.
You're right. I expected to see more from Thomas Loflad. I misread his sector time. I thought his sector time was better than it actually was. Right, he lost a chunk of time in that middle sector. Meantime, we can give you the order of Sartigan, Gostner, Herdviper, Nussbaumer, Skeltermar, Dillon, Gostner, Chung, Christensen, Loflad, and Corinna Gostner. Just think, Nico, Manuela Gostner walking away from her car now will be a tad disappointed with that. P7.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she is a race winner. She's put in a pole position. P7 is not where she would like it. He is going to be satisfied.
He has the Rotiform pole position award. That menacing look from Axel Sardigan, you devil. Super chap, really is, and a great driver as well. It's a nice shot of the Estoril circuit and the bridge, and as Nico and I were saying earlier, the very punishing gravel traps that exist around this old school circuit. And there is the podium that awaits our drivers after the racing today.
And awaits us right after this qualifying session, just to not receive any champagne or trophies, but maybe we'll just go there because it's close.
No, maybe. Why not, indeed? Cars being pushed back into their garages. They will receive attention ahead of the race, but for this man, look at this. Success for Axel Sardigan, which also means success for Daniele Diamato and Frank Herter as well, because it's another pole position, which, Nico, is another point on the board for Axel Sardigan, is it not? Indeed so. Point awarded for pole position. In replay then, the top man, Axel Sardigan, with a 140.228. I wondered if we might see a 139 time. It wasn't to be. However, he got jolly close to it, and he's going to be one well worth watching during the race to come a little bit later. Axel Sardigan then, pole position for Copa Shell. So there we have it, both our Shell Am and Shell qualifying is done and dusted. We still have Trofeo Pirelli qualifying to come a little bit later this morning. Please join us for that if you can. From Nico and from myself, thank you so much for watching. And for the moment, from the Circuito Estoril, goodbye.